Welcome to On the Sidelines, the show that discusses sports and how sports intersects our lives. I'm your host, Paul McGrath, and I'm glad that you can join us for this show. Our guest is longtime resident of Westboro, Butch Byrd. Before coming to Westboro, Butch was involved with professional football, playing for the Buffalo Bills and the Denver Broncos. He was a five-time AFL All-Star and is enshrined in both the Boston University and the LaSalle Institute's Halls of Fame. Butch, welcome to On the Sidelines.
Oh, thank you very much.
Good to have you here. Before we get to Butch being in Westboro, you didn't grow up in Westboro. I don't even think you grew up in Massachusetts. Can you walk us back to where Butch grew up and how he got involved in football?
Sure. I was raised in upstate New York, right outside of Albany, a small city town called Watervliet. Some may have heard of it.
Yeah.
Went to school in Troy, New York, LaSalle Institute. And after LaSalle, I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to Boston University. That's how I got to Boston the first time.
Right.
And then drafted by the Bills.
So back in Watervliet, young boy, young man like us, football, baseball, all sports?
All sports,
All
but
sports.
I excelled in football.
Did you really? Yeah.
But I was a pretty good basketball player, a better baseball player. I was a center fielder, but I couldn't hit left-handed hitting. So football is my game.
Football's the game. So BU.
Yep.
You played at LaSalle Institute. How did they scout you, or did you apply to BU? How did we end up at BU?
Well, let's see.
Kid from Watervliet.
Back in the day, colleges would, and I'm sure they still do it, they would send out scouts to watch you play. And I had 3 or 4 scouts watch me play football for LaSalle. And one of those scouts was a fellow named George Winkler from BU. And he decided that I was good enough to play for BU and offered me a scholarship. And my mother and brother director says BU, Boston University, was a great place to go, and so here I am.
Now, had you ever heard of BU or anything in Massachusetts, or were we a foreign nation to you?
No, I did hear of Boston University because at that particular time, they were playing big-time football.
Right.
They were playing Syracuse and Penn State and West Virginia, and that's what I wanted to do. I got a lot of offers, or several offers, from smaller schools, but I wanted to go to a major school, independent. And so, BU was the one that offered me a scholarship, so I took it.
Took it. Well, I mean, I remember me growing up, one of the big players at BU was Harry Aganis. And Harry Aganis ended up playing with the Red Sox and unfortunately passed away early.
Yep.
You go to BU, and I look at the BU record. And 1961, when you would have been a sophomore because it was freshman ball back then, the record was 4-5. And the big game, November 18th, you played Boston College, and it was a 10-7 loss. So gave BC a pretty good game. The next year, 1962, we're 2-7.
Yep.
We play BC again and lose 41-25. And in your senior year, we go 1 win, 6 losses, and 1 tie.
I remember it.
And I remember your victory, because your victory was against my alma mater, Holy Cross, in Worcester. And back in those days, our local priest, Father Scanlon, he got me to go up to Holy Cross to be an usher. And the deal was usher for about a quarter and go find a seat. So I would have been at that game, Butch, that you beat Holy Cross, but I don't remember it, but I know you beat Holy Cross.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't remember that either. that whole season was a blank. I put it out of my mind.
Yeah, you beat Holy Cross 18-6 around Columbus Day on October 12th. So, and then, unfortunately, The big game against Boston College, of course, was canceled because of the assassination of
right.
JFK. So we come to December, and I'm going to throw out some names for our vintage viewers here. We come to December, and now we have the AFL and the NFL, and in December of '63, they both have drafts, a couple of days apart.
Right.
So here are some of the names that were drafted. Jack Concannon, who was the quarterback of
BC.
Boston College.
Yeah.
You would have played against him.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He, matter of fact, I remember the Holy Cross game they did play in '63, and when I ushered that game, I found the seat quickly because there was a lot of people that BC game, and Holy Cross defeated them 9-0. But Jack Concannon was drafted in the first round by the Patriots, and in the second round by the Eagles. And he would go with the Eagles. He didn't go to the AFL. We had a guy named Roger Staubach.
Oh yeah.
I think people remember him. He was drafted in the 10th round by the Cowboys and the 16th round by the Chiefs. And again, I think he was a late draft pick because he had to serve time in the Navy. Of course, he had a pretty good career after that.
Oh, absolutely.
Paul Warfield. He was drafted by the Bills.
Oh yeah.
4th round, the Browns #1. I think many people here remember him with Miami, but excellent ball player. So again, we have both leagues. One of my favorite, Holy Cross grad, John Morris, the center. The Patriots drafted him in the 4th round. The Packers, Vince Lombardi saw him, but he went with the Patriots.
Yeah, he was a good player.
He was a good player. Another good player, Matt Snell. The Jets drafted him in the 1st round, the Giants in the 4th, and he went with the AFL. That was kind of a big coup for the New York teams. A fella here that really never got out of training camp, but he was drafted in the 7th round by the Detroit Lions. Bill Parcells. You might remember that name. I never knew he was drafted by the Lions.
I didn't either.
And he never made it out of training camp. But he did make it somewhere along the line. Here's another #1 pick for the Bills, Carl Eller. Would have been on your team.
Oh yeah.
But he went to the Vikings. And then we have a couple of other fellows here that I noticed, and you can comment on them. For both of them from Boston University. One fellow was the 11th round draft choice of the Chargers, one the 12th round draft choice of the Bears, a guy named Bob Horton. Here we got two guys out of B. We'll get to the U. Bob Horton.
Bob was my roommate.
Oh, he was, yeah.
And a good football player. Big guy, strong guy, fast. We had, although our record doesn't show it, we had 3 or 4 ball players that could play with anybody, any college team, and that's why we were drafted. It was a surprise to a lot of people that we had not the 3 or 4 guys get picked by the AFL or NFL, but we were pretty good individually.
Did the two of you talk about being drafted? You ever thought being drafted, the two of you? Or?
Well, not to be conceited.
That's okay. We can cut some of this.
But I always thought back in the day that I'd get drafted.
Really?
Even though our record was so poor and so forth, there was just no doubt in my mind that I would get drafted. No, I had no reason to really believe that, but I did. The day of the draft, all the guys were sitting around the TV and wishing and hoping that their name would be called. I didn't go to the TV room. I could, because I just knew that I'd get drafted, which happened. The other thing is, I didn't get drafted by the NFL.
That's correct. You were the one that was not drafted by the NFL.
Yeah, and can't explain that, but they did come weeks later. In fact, it was Green Bay approached me and said that would I like to play for Green Bay? And I said, well, I've already signed with the Buffalo Bills. And they said, well, don't worry about that. We'll fix that if you want to play with Green Bay. And I said, no, I signed. I'm playing with the Buffalo Bills. And that was it.
So I think, if I'm correct, I might be wrong, Lombardi would have still been the coach then.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, that's got to be a big draw or a pull. Somehow Lombardi must have been involved in wanting you, my guess, just to make you more conceited.
Well, I'm not sure of that.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I really thought about was the fact that I had given my word to the Bills that, yep, I'm ready to play for you guys, and not to backtrack on that. So.
Now, back then, when you signed, do you remember the dollars?
It wasn't much. Let's see. John Mazer, I don't know if you remember the name.
He was the coach, huh?
He was my college coach who took a job with the Buffalo Bills. And he gave me a call and said that the Bills were going to draft me, and he would bring up the signing bonus check. And the check was $1,500, which I thought was great.
Good money, yeah.
It went from nothing to $1,500. And signed it. My first NFL contract was $10,000 a year. Based on what Coach Mazer was telling me, I was the most rookies were getting. Come to find out that there were several rookies drafted behind me, back in the 6th or 7th rounds, who were making more. They came from one kid, Earl Lattimore from Michigan State. I don't know, I forget the dollar amount, but it was more than I was making. And I just figured Mazer had just lied to me. So I went to my room and cried, literally. But it all turned out.
Yeah, and don't forget, then the AFL was 8 teams and the NFL was 16. So you were a 4th-round draft pick, but if you divide by the number of teams, it's almost like you're a 2nd-round draft pick because there were only 8 teams. So you were up there as far as I'm concerned.
Well, another way of looking at it, you mentioned Paul Warfield. He was drafted by the Bills ahead of me.
Right.
Carl Eller was drafted by the Bills
right.
ahead of me. And there's one more. There are 3 guys.
I don't have the other
who
one,
all went to the NFL.
Yeah.
So I was the 4th-round draft choice. But in reality, I was the number 1 pick.
You became number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are. We have a couple of pictures of you. There you are, number 42 for the Bills. There's a good picture there. And we have another one here. There you are. You're taking a break there. But you're now playing for the Bills. You played at Boston University. If I'm correct, you were a running back. But
correct. I played both ways, but I was a
you
running
did.
back.
But they wanted you as a defensive back.
Correct.
When you went to the Bills, do you have any idea which way you were going to play?
Oh yeah, I knew it was defensive back.
You knew it was defensive.
Yeah, they told me right after I got drafted, or the reason why they were going to draft me was to play right cornerback.
Oh, and that's where they wanted you.
So I said, okay.
So you knew that. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's look. This is your rookie year. Here's game 3. You're playing the Chargers, who you'd play many years. And let's look at a couple of clips here, if we may.
A standing room only throng of 40,167 jams War Memorial Stadium for San Diego. A pair of blue-chip rookies, Butch Byrd and Haygood Clark, spearhead the Bills' 3rd straight win with heart-stopping first-half heroics. Byrd short-circuits an apparent Charger touchdown drive with this interception, and the Bills are on the way.
Was that your? I don't know if that was your first one or
First.
That was your very first one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you ended up. That was your first interception. You played 112 games. You intercepted 40 passes for 666 yards and 5 touchdowns. It's still a record for the Bills,
Correct.
to my knowledge.
It is.
So, when you played that, what would you key in on? Would you key on the quarterback? Did you play man-to-man, zone?
Well, back in the day when I was playing, we played man-to-man 99% of the time.
It was.
Zone was just a defense we'd go in occasionally, but it was all man for man. The big key was, how should I put it? I used to watch the receiver and watch his moves, and this is on film as we're getting ready to play. And I would say to myself, what can't I defend? And what can I defend? I had plus and minuses. In the moves that I would have a problem with, I would compensate by moving over to that.
Just adjusting,
I would adjust before the play, and it worked. So my weaknesses were taken care of by my adjustments, and the things I could do well, I didn't have to worry about because it was automatically. The other part of this was that back in my college days, we had a situation where we had, and I can't think of his name, the coach of the Oakland Raiders. I can't think of it. Anyway, he was sitting in the stands. Oakland was playing the Patriots, and they played at BU Stadium. And he came down to the field yelling, screaming. He's watching us play, or practice. And he says, "You don't cover that way." And he was adamant. And I looked at him. He says, "Your idea, the way you play for your team is you have to turn the ball over to the offense. Just knocking the ball down isn't good enough." And that message just stuck with me. So every time the ball was thrown my way, the first thing in my mind when I played pro was intercept.
So it brought your game up a level, or
yeah,
a little bit, yeah?
What was his name? Can't think of it.
Yeah. But that's the way it was. So here you are, a rookie. You're on the Buffalo Bills. You go 9-0. You haven't lost a game.
Right.
And you come in to play the New England Patriots.
Yep.
And they would give you the first loss.
Yep.
And you would go on, and then the end of the season, you would play the Patriots for the championship of your division.
Yep.
The team that had defeated you. And let's look a little bit of this is what we're going to look at here. This was snowy Fenway Park.
Big Ernie Warlick, the Bills' tight or blocking end, now makes a key reception to set up the Bills' second score by Kemp. Kemp fades, throws, and Ernie is wide open as he takes it and goes to the Boston 8, a total of 44 yards. George Sames' brilliant interception here sets up Pete Gogolak's 12-yard field goal and a 17-6 Buffalo halftime lead. In the fourth period, with the issues still in doubt, Charlie Warner intercepts Perilli's pass and returns 38 yards to the Pats 17. Ray Carlton churns for 14. Jack Kemp scores the touchdown. Last play, Cookie gains 5, and the Bills are Eastern Division champs.
So you come back to beat the Patriots at Fenway. Now, people may not remember, the Patriots played at Fenway. I think earlier they also played at BU, at Nickerson. Did you ever see the Patriots when you were at BU?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, now you're playing against them, yeah?
In fact, I saw all the AFL teams because that's where they played,
played,
at
yeah.
Nicholson Stadium, BU Stadium. So although I wasn't familiar with the ball players themselves, I was familiar with the teams. So,
Yeah, you'd seen them
because
play.
we used to go every game. So
You'd be, because you were right there.
yeah.
Yeah, and then, but somehow, I guess the Patriots changed to Fenway Park for that year for whatever reason. But you know, it was kind of it wasn't the best day. I mean, it was but you won the championship, and then in the East, and then again you played the Chargers. It seems like you're playing the Chargers all the time in big games, and you beat San Diego again for the third time for the championship.
Which is amazing because they had a great team.
Yeah.
They had Ernie Ladd and Bambi. They were just very physical, very athletic. But we were pretty good too.
Well, you were very, from what I read, defense. I mean, you had a good offense, but the defense.
Very good defense.
You guys had a very good defense. So, Butch, here you are. You're a rookie.
Yep.
You win the championship. They call you an all-star, and you are an all-star, and they say, Butch, you're going to New Orleans to play in the all-star game. Life is good, but then you get off a plane and tell us what happened. I mean, life changed.
Well, let's see. You're right. Life was, my rookie year, I couldn't believe how fortunate I was. Coming out of BU and having all those losing seasons, and then playing professionally and getting paid for it. Life was wonderful. I made the All-Star team, and we're down in New Orleans, and it didn't happen to me personally, but when I arrived at the hotel, several of the black ball players were coming in complaining bitterly about how they were being treated on Bourbon Street and different restaurants in New Orleans. And apparently, the city fathers had made inroads to these establishments saying that we're trying to get professional football into New Orleans, and a lot of black players will be coming into your establishments. But either they disregarded that message because we weren't allowed to have dinner in any of the restaurants on Bourbon Street. And we were assured, in fact, I was assured personally that there would be no problems in New Orleans. And so we had several meetings and to talk about what to do. And the players, to a man, voted not to play in New Orleans. So we boarded the planes back to Buffalo, or I came back to Buffalo, but as soon as I got to Buffalo, Jack Horgan, the Bills vice president, had called my house, my wife, and said, tell Butch to get back on the plane and go to Houston. So I walked in and walked out, got back on the plane, went to Houston, and we played the game.
Now, was it much black guys against white guys at that point at the meetings, or how?
No.
What do you remember? All of a sudden, here you are, ready to go, and it's like, whoa, time out.
Yeah. Well, let's see. At the meetings that we had in New Orleans, it was the black guys who were talking the most about what was happening, and the reason why was because it was happening to them or to us. The white guys were listening, but agreed to what we were saying.
But they had no idea what was going on, apparently.
No, not until we told them.
Right.
So everyone was on board. Some of the white guys were reluctant. They wanted to play the game, but I could understand that because they didn't suffer the situations that we were suffering.
Yeah, it can't be that bad, Butch, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone decided to leave, but everyone within 24 hours came back to Houston, and we played the game.
And you played the game. Now, One of the All-Stars, you had many Bills on the All-Star games at the game, but was Jack Kemp.
Oh, yeah.
And Jack Kemp would go on to be elected in the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
He would be Bob Dole's running mate in 1996 against Bill Clinton. Was he involved? Was he much of a politician, either at those meetings or during the season? What do you remember about Jack Kemp? I mean,
Well, Jack was one of the spokesmen.
Yeah.
It was he, Ernie Ladd. I can't think of the other fellow. There were three of them.
Yeah.
Two were from the Chargers, and they held the meeting and they got everyone together and talked about what we should do or what they thought we should do. Now, as I remember it, Jack was for playing the game, and the reason why was he was saying if we played the game, we would do more for racial harmony than just by leaving. None of the black guys bought into that, you know. Jack finally said that, okay, if the black guys want to leave and not play the game, then I'm going to follow them. So he acquiesced to what was happening, but he did want to play the game at first hand.
You know, at first I thought, well, geez, here is the new AFL. It was still 3-4 years old, and they can't put on an all-star game. Then I said, well, no, here they are, AFL. They're showing power here. They're showing what it really means to stick together.
Yeah.
And I think my thinking went from one to the other to what it did for the AFL.
Well, at the particular time, at the time of the meetings and during that time in New Orleans, being a young man, I really didn't have the experience to understand what was really happening.
Yeah.
It really didn't really formalize in my mind until I got back to Buffalo. And newspaper guys, television guys were coming to my home and saying, we want to talk to you about this.
All of a sudden you were
And I'm saying, wow, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
This is really a big deal. And I did several interviews on national TV about what was happening in New Orleans or what happened in New Orleans. And one of the commentators said, this is the first time that sports organizations will have to pay attention to the black problems that are happening.
And they were right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, had you faced it at all in college or the other, when you went to other cities?
The only time we had a racial incident, and it was really just name calling, there was no fisticuffs or anything like that, was when we played West Virginia in West Virginia. Both teams, they were a little bit better than us, but we were holding our own. And they were just calling us all kinds of names, which surprised me because that was my first experience. Football can be very heated at times and so forth, but the players usually control themselves. This was the first time that there's some blatant name calling going on from the West Virginia football players. So that was the only time.
Yeah, you got through it. Well, we get through that. We do the All-Star game. Now we're the defending champs. And let's take a look. You had some injuries in that year, but let's take a look at a couple of plays you made in 1965 against Oakland. You had a home game against Oakland and an away game. If we can look at some plays against Oakland.
The well-coached Buffalo defense had a banner day, holding Raider quarterback Tom Flores to 7 completions in 26 attempts, with none in the second half. Butch Byrd and George Sames double-team Art Powell, preventing an Oakland touchdown. The defensive unit takes charge. 278-pound Jim Dunaway forces Dick Wood to hurry his pass. Butch Byrd intercepts, and he's off and running. Before the elusive cornerback is finally caught, Byrd covers 62 yards, setting up Buffalo's first touchdown. The Bills' secret for success is simple: depth, teamwork, and preparation. This is what makes the so-called breaks and what makes them pay off.
So there's the elusive Butch Byrd.
Not so elusive.
So we're off again. The offense had some injuries that year, but the team stuck together in another championship in the East.
Well, again, our defensive team was just tremendous when I was playing, and we took up some of the slack that the offense created through injury. And, you know, we were successful doing that.
So we get to another championship game, and again, San Diego Chargers. It seems like they're coming up all the time. Let's take a peek at one of the highlights of the championship game.
All right.
This time they take it all the way as Butch Byrd waits for Hadel's punt. A block from Ed Rutkowski, and he's on his way. Watch Paul McGrath dispose of John Hadel and Dave Kasurik to clear the way for a 74-yard touchdown. Come on back, Butch, and describe that play for us.
I picked up Paul McGrath about maybe the 20-yard line, and he put a fine block on Hadel and Kasurik, and I went in for the scoring.
Buffalo leads 14-0. McDowell, Dunaway, and Sestak apply the pressure to John Hadel as he tries to pass from his own end zone. It's overthrown, and Butch Byrd is right there to make the interception. Byrd returns to the Charger 23, and it's close enough for another Gogolak field goal.
I think you ran backwards as good as you can go frontwards there, Butch. But 2 years in a row, I mean, it's not that easy to win a championship, one, let alone two. You guys stuck together.
Yeah.
And you're out in San Diego. It was not a home game.
We had a real good organization.
Yeah.
It really did. And the guys liked each other, and we played together.
Well, you had Lou Saban as your coach.
Yep.
And I was looking at the coaches here, and you had Joe Collier. He would become the coach in '66, but he was also your defensive coach.
Yeah, he was our defensive coach. Very good, very smart coach. Didn't get emotional when things got bad. Yeah. He was just calm and cool, collected.
1966, you play a championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs, and that didn't go as well.
Well, it didn't, and right from the beginning, I can remember Kansas kicking off to start the game, and a defensive tackle named Dudley Meredith picked up the kickoff and started running with it, and they hit him unmercifully, and he fumbled the ball, and they recovered. And about 5 or 6 plays later, they went in for a touchdown. And the game was basically over because we were playing from behind all the time.
Yeah.
And it was disappointing because we really believed that we would win that game. And because we had beaten Kansas in Kansas before.
Right, and they would go on to play in the first Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So you would have been in the first Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
And I watched that game very closely. I watched the guy who I would be covering.
Yeah.
I said I could cover him.
Didn't happen.
No.
But and then Bills the record went down a little bit. The glory days, I guess, were over. But you were still playing, and you would end up with Denver. I think, again, the coaches probably, Lou Saban went to Denver.
Yeah.
I don't know if you followed him or he followed you, or
I followed him and Joe Collier.
Joe Collier.
Both of them were out there.
Okay, so let's look at I looked at some of the records here.
Okay.
So I want to go over some of the. There were some very good players that you had to go against, and I was looking at one here. We're looking at some of the leading receivers, and if we can show here, a fellow here by the name of Matt Snell.
Oh yeah. I know.
And what, as a young fellow watching, I always thought of Matt Snell as a power running back. But I look at the statistics in 1964, he was one of the top receivers. So you had to kind of cover him. Do you remember him, covering him both ways? Or?
Well, he was running from, he's coming out of the backfield.
Yeah?
So he was catching swing passes, so I would have nothing to do with that.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So, but he was a great back, a good friend of mine.
Yeah, was that right, yeah?
And a great player.
Yeah, he was the one that the Jets got away from the New York Giants, and he was a tremendous player.
He and Namath were a dynamite duo.
A name that I see all the time, and I remember, and he was for San Diego, Lance Allworth.
One of the best.
Yeah. Were you covering him or how?
He was 90% of the time he was on the other side, the left side.
Yeah.
I did on occasion cover him, but that was rare.
That was rare.
I had Norton.
Yeah,
He was on the right side.
So, put you on the spot. Who was your toughest one? Do you remember who your toughest guy to cover was?
The toughest guy, there were two.
Yeah.
One was George Sauer.
The Jets,
for
again, the Jets.
And Warlick.
Oh, yeah.
Warlick was smooth and fast. George wasn't that fast, but he had moves.
Moves and timing, I suppose, yeah. So, yeah, I looked at this and, some names that we remember, Lionel Taylor, Charlie Hennigan.
Hennigan was good. Taylor, they were all good.
They're all good ball players. How about the quarterbacks? We have here Joe Namath. Of course, he came on later. John Hadel. You had Jack Kemp and Darryl LaMonica, and then Darryl went to Oakland.
Right.
There was some Would you ever key in on the quarterback, or did you study the quarterbacks, what their tendencies were?
Yeah. The first interception for San Diego was based on tendencies. And the reason how that happened was we're getting ready to play San Diego, and Booker Edgerson, he was the left cornerback, came up to me and said, there's a tendency that Tobin Rote has. If he completes a pass for 20 to 30 yards, he will immediately come back the second time and throw a quick out.
Shorter one, quick out.
So it happened. He hit the receiver for a 30-yard pass, and I'm sitting up there waiting for the Chargers to break the huddle, and I said, here comes this pass. So I just stopped, and all of a sudden he rose up and threw the ball, and I caught it. And I said, he was right. Booker was right.
And you believed him. That was the big thing, yeah. I mean, plus back then, some of the quarterbacks were almost two-way. It was George Blanda, quarterback, but he also kicked.
Yeah.
John Hadel, we saw John Hadel punting.
Punting, yeah.
It was a different game back then.
It was. I think, as far as the punting was concerned, I think Hadel was a substitute. I think the punter, the actual punter, was hurt.
Injured. Yeah.
Because Hadel was okay, but he wasn't a really good punter.
Yeah. How about Joe Namath? What?
Attitude.
That's all right.
I mean, he just had a winning attitude, and if the problem with what I had with Joe, if you made a good play on him, he'd come right back at you.
Oh.
So
he was going to show you.
Yeah, and that's the feeling that I had every time I played against him.
Yeah.
And he was one of the best at the time.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to life since football. You end up with Denver.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, life changes. I mean, you don't play football forever.
Overnight.
Overnight. What did Butch do then? What?
Well, let's see. Worried a lot.
Yeah.
I got cut from Denver. And the reasons why I got cut from Denver, in my opinion, was we had a pregame meal, and they served sunny side up eggs. And most black guys just like scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
So I went up to the coach. The black guys came over to me, and I went up to the coach, John Ralston, and said,
yeah.
Coach, can we have scrambled eggs instead of sunny side up? And he says, you're going to eat what I ordered. And I said, okay. So I put my plate down and went down to the restaurant and ordered scrambled eggs. But I didn't realize that the black guys behind me were following me to the restaurant until I sat down. So there were about maybe 7 or 8 black guys ordering scrambled eggs. And that was a challenge to Ralston, you know, his authority.
But you didn't know you were leading a walkout.
No, I didn't. And then because I had assurances from the other coaches that I had made the team. This was the last game of the season, the last preseason game.
That was it, yeah.
And he called me into his office that Monday, just before the first regular season game, and says, sorry, I have to let you go.
Just like that.
Yeah. And I looked at him, but I knew what was happening, and got back to Buffalo. Went to the Bills. I went to Saban. Saban was still there, and I said, I need a job, but I don't want to play. I want to coach. And he says, well, let me see what I can do. So he said, come back tomorrow, something like that. And he says, how would you like to be a scout? I said, anything that pays. So I became a scout for the Bills for half the season.
Uh-huh.
And then I would say halfway through the season, the Bills were contacted by industry, Chrysler, IBM, and so forth and so on, said that they were looking for ball players, recently retired ball players, who would fit this description, and we'd like to hire them. So the Bills called me in. Jack Horrigan, who was the vice president, called me in and said, here's an opportunity for you. Would you want to work for Chrysler? And I really didn't at the time, but Jack was a great guy, and I said, fine. So I went off to Detroit, and my mindset was, I'm doing this for Jack. I'll sit down and talk to these guys. The guy's name is Jim Pickless, and tell him no after the session, and I'd go back home. The Chrysler people are great salespeople, and before I knew it, I was signing documents, and they said, welcome to Chrysler Corporation. And that's how I started, and worked for them for about 10 years, and Polaroid for about another 10 years, and retired.
So how did we get from Buffalo to Detroit to little old Westboro?
Well, in working for Polaroid, that was in Cambridge.
Right.
And I was looking for housing, and nothing close to Boston was affordable. And at that particular time, Westboro was this community, but the housing was affordable. So I and the realtor looked around, saw this house on Wayside Road, and I said, well, that's it. But I found the community, the people in it, tremendous. And that was the first thing, because I had no idea. There weren't many black people here, if any.
You're probably right, yeah.
And but everyone that I met was just just a great person, great people.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with the community. My wife loves the community. My kids went to school in Westboro. They did fine, and been here ever since.
Well, we're glad you're here, Butch. One thing now, I don't know if it was effective or was there when you played. It's called CTE, a chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is head problems.
Yeah.
Was it there when you played? Any thoughts on what's going on there?
Well, let's see. When I was playing, we didn't know anything about that. You would get knocked out, and we'd call it, you got dinged, but didn't think much about it. Didn't think about the aftermath of what could happen. That happens not only in football, but it happens in other sports, soccer, baseball. Hockey. Anytime you get hit in the head, there's a danger of that happening, and it has long-term effects. It's something that's being addressed. I think it was one of the primary reasons why the better helmets came into place. The equipment overall had become more sophisticated, better, but it still remains a problem today.
Yeah, it's there. Well, Butch, we're going to end up where we found one picture, and it's a mystery picture. And you can see it looks like the referee is trying to trip you. And we looked, and it looks like it's San Diego, but there was nobody can figure out what game it was. You probably don't remember either.
No.
But it looks like the ref is trying. You got to San Diego. It looks like a charger against you, and there's the ref, and there's his foot. But I don't know what you did. It looks like at least it's an interception, whether he tackled you or what happened there.
I really don't remember.
No, nobody seems to know. That was a mystery picture. Does anyone know what Butch was doing here? I don't know, but we're gonna end up on a mystery because Butch, you are no mystery. We're glad to have you on the sidelines. Butch, thanks for being on the sidelines.
Glad to be here.
Okay, well that's Paul McGrath saying thanks for watching, and we hope to see you at the game. And if you're not playing in the game, we hope to see you on the sidelines.